Where am I investing right now? Now, this is a show that's about the future of business. For those of you who don't know me as well or just need a reminder, I'm Shawn McBride. I'm a corporate lawyer. I am also a CPA, and so I spend a lot of time thinking about investments. I touch the investment worlds a lot because that's what my clients are doing. We're not here to help you find the right investment, but what I do want to talk about is what I'm not seeing enough people talking about, at least in my opinion, as I go out there and watch the videos and I see people talking about investing and where they're putting their time and energy and where they're putting their assets. And today I want to talk about where I'm personally investing that a lot of people are talking about. Maybe something you want to think about. Again, it's not investment advice. I'm not an investment advisor. Talk to your investment advisor about formal investments. But what I'm not seeing people talking about is investing time and energy into themselves in this uncertain world. And I've spent a lot of time in the last years studying this uncertain world we're in, right? And we've been in an uncertain world for a long time, and it just seems to be spiraling and ramping up. And if you're like me, you see more uncertainty coming. Even with this U.S. change of administration, new president coming in, there's going to be a lot of shifts. We had a shift one direction when Trump had his first term in 2016. Biden did a record number of executive orders on his first day in office and spent 4 years largely reversing things. Now it looks like Trump is ready to hit the ground running, and he's going to reverse things probably farther than he reversed them the first time, very quickly, and he's going to have 4 years of reversing, and then who knows where we go the 4 years after that. But the point is, we are moving into an environment where the geopolitical climate, both U.S. and internationally, is such that provides a lot of uncertainty. And so all of that connects to all of our investments. And I see people talking about stocks, talking about gold, talking about Bitcoin, talking about real estate. I mean, these are some traditional categories, real estate, using real estate, using stocks. These are traditional investing categories. Then, of course, gold has been around for a long time. Bitcoin is newer and getting very popular. Bitcoin price seems to just keep going up over time. Goes a little bit of blip down here and there, but it works its way up. So some people think that's a great investment, and maybe Bitcoin is a future monetary base. Gold, if you look at gold over time, holds its value, right? So they say that, a ounce of gold would buy a nice men's suit, and that has been true for a long period of time. And if you look at many things like houses and other things in terms of a quantity of gold, it's almost a fixed ratio. The problem with gold, of course, is that you have to physically keep it safe. You have to store it, so you're either paying somebody else to store it if it's in your IRA or elsewhere or in a warehouse, or you need to physically secure it, right? There's a risk of loss or a risk of break-in. And all of these investments are somehow tied to the greater monetary system, right? Whether you're doing stocks, whether you're doing Bitcoin, whether you're doing real estate, you are tied into the system, right? Real estate in particular, if the economy starts to do poorly, real estate is a real problem. You could be stuck holding it. You may not be able to get renters. Rent prices might come down. The price of real estate might come down, which is a real problem if you have mortgages. So all of these, we're all betting on the economy. So where can we go to invest and put time and energy, resources, which is what investment is, right? Where can we go to put time, energy, and resources that potentially has a greater return and maybe allows us more flexibility going forward and is more transportable? And what I've come to is yourself and your family, right? Those around you, your closest people. That is probably the investment you can make. What is your health like? Are you eating good foods? Are you doing the exercise? Are you learning the things? Are you building your skills to position yourself for the future? Here's the reality. If we get into a global politics, geopolitical war that is, potentially looming, many people are afraid of, if we end up in a massive world war, particularly if it's nuclear or using these hypersonic missiles which are out there now, we are talking about potentially wiping out a lot of assets, a lot of wealth, right? You may be impacted. Certainly your local economy would be impacted. The disruption of that type of event would be massive. to both the markets. If you look at, it took forever for the stock market to recover from the losses of 1929 with the crash. And so it may take a very long time, if we have a world war interposed here, for stocks to recover. Real estate might go sideways. But you are not hopefully going anywhere, right? And if you are, then it all doesn't matter anyway where you have your assets are. But assuming you're planning to be around to get to the other side of whatever may happen, you need to think about where to put assets. And one thing that they can't take away from you is the knowledge in your head. They can't take away any skills that you have, right? And you may have to rebuild. And many of us, and this is a reality I'm facing, it may not be a traditional ride off into the sunset. And a lot of people may get, a loss here where they're planning and they're building assets and doing all the right work, and they've got the real estate and they got the stocks or whatever the case may be. And they've done the work to prepare themselves for retirement. And they may end up having to keep working. And that just may be a reality, right? This system, and people talk about a resetting, a monetary reset, and using war and inflation as a system to equalize things again, right? And if you look at some of this work on the fourth turning with Neil Howe, he's been on a lot of shows recently. I've watched him a lot. And, in one of his interviews, he talks about inflation being a feature, not a bug, right? He actually thinks that inflation is a tool to reset wealth. Well, that's great if you're on the low side of things, right? If things inflate and you don't have any assets and you're essentially starting from zero, that's fine. If you hold assets, you hope that the assets you have keep up with inflation. But the problem is, if the inflation gets so massive, obviously, you're going to be in a position where you don't have enough assets, right? And I did the math recently. I'd love for any of you that are math-minded, do feel free to join me in the comments always, and especially on this if you're math-minded. But, the report is that there's about $200 trillion in U.S. debt if you include Medicare, Social Security, some of these things that have not been recorded on the books. Versus the 36 trillion official debt. So if you take that 200 trillion divided over approximately 350 million or so people in the U.S., you end up with a very large number. And I came up with like $517,000 per person, right? And that's now including, people who are not working. That's including the retired. That's including the children who are still in school. And we talk about people in the U.S. don't even have enough for an emergency. They don't have $500 in case they need a new set of tires for their car, or $500 in case the washing machine breaks. Right? There are people in this category here in the U.S. right now. Yet theoretically, everybody owes $517,000 just to get the system back to even. Right? Just to pay back all the bills that have been incurred to date. And the government has a lot of unrecorded assets, roads, bridges, things that are not readily marketable, buildings, national parks. I mean, we have some stuff to show for this debt, but a lot of it is intangible, right? It's just promises to pay and transfer payments. So we're all in the hole. And so if Neil Howe is right, that inflation is a feature of the system and it's designed to wipe people out, a theory that also Gerald Celente, basically has, right? That if you take everybody to war and you reset the system, you're going to wipe out all the wealth. And of course, the wealthiest of the wealthy, we saw what happened with the last reset here with the, last 5 years or so, right? They built the system in such a way they came out better, and more people moved to the struggling ledger. I imagine the most politically connected and the top of the top will find ways to come out of it, much better than the average person. But for the average person, if dollars are printed to cover all of these debts and U.S. productivity goes down, or the U.S. spends all of its time and energy making military equipment and sending people off to war along with the rest of the world in some type of conflict, if we get to that point, we all get wiped out. And even if we don't get to that point, if things just keep humming along, we avoid the wars, we avoid the issues, at some point there's a day of reckoning, right? People can't afford their rent. People can't afford to buy houses. People are struggling to get by. And that day of reckoning is going to come at some point where people are saying, why am I working and paying taxes into the system when I'm getting nothing back, right? We are actually hearing a lot of analysts say that we're actually moving into the generation where the children are going to have a lower standard of living than their parents. And join me in the comments and let me know. I'd love to know where you are in this cycle, and whether you think your parents had a better life than you're going to have, or vice versa. If you're the parent, do you think your kids are keeping up? Or do you think these analysts are crazy? Do you think things are keep getting better? But a lot of people are saying it's getting worse. And if enough people believe it's getting worse, whether it's getting worse or not, if people believe that it's getting worse, at some point people are not going to want to participate in the system, right? And I think that's why we see more and more radical political groups growing. We see more and more political ideas that seem a little bit far afield from history or from what people have done in the past, and these new movements are trying to come in, and you have a good audience because people are frustrated. But for you and me, what does this mean? Well, we have the traditional investments, and I certainly, again, talk to your investment advisor. Stocks, real estate, gold, Bitcoin, they all have a place, and maybe you should have a little bit of all of that in your portfolio. The real discussion, though, is what percentage of each. One thing a lot of people are not talking about anymore is bonds, because of this high debt, the desire to keep interest rates low, the risk that's embedded in the debt. I think bonds is kind of a dying category of personal investments, right? I don't see a lot of people dying to get bonds. And then I see people that are retiring that are going to try to live off the cash flow from their investments, potentially using annuities. And if this hyperinflation hits in the way I think it might, and we eventually have that day of reckoning and the money printing to keep up with the U.S. deficits as they grow, and those entitlements and those expenses that have been promised but not funded, if we get to the point where that money is being printed, the inflation cycle is going to come. And that's going to leave everybody losing wealth, except maybe the wealthiest who have the connections to, get themselves special deals or what the case might be. So the only thing, as I analyze this, that's really going to survive through this is what you know and what you can do and what you can build on the other side of it, right? You may have to power through this and start rebuilding. Those people that have the skills, that have the knowledge, that have the insights, that have the ability to continue to rebuild are going to be best positioned. And I know it's a message a lot of people don't want to hear. You don't want to hear that your assets are going to be wiped out. You don't want to be hear that you may be left basically with the shirt on your back and have to restart, especially, those of us that have a little bit of gray hair and are starting to, been around for a while. We don't want to reset, but that is the reality, right? And that's going to come probably for, everybody throughout the age perspective. These entitlement programs are only going to go so far, and at some point everybody's going to have to reset. So we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What questions do you have? What topics would you like me to cover in future videos? Let me know. Feel free to share with your friends. Get the conversation started. Would love to hear what they're thinking as well. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like so that we can get more people to see this channel on YouTube. We're starting to rebuild, start to do regular videos again. So I'd like to get more people in the know. Of course, subscribe if you want to get these regularly popped on your feed. And I look forward to seeing you for another video soon. Look forward to reading your comments.